as the evolution of our democracy. There was a reason why the broad-based government was put into place, and that was to bring, previously warring factions to work together in a government to be able to push certain reforms as were were documented in the NADCO report, and they agreed on the 10-point agenda. Mm-hmm. Now, you must appreciate that the broad-based government brings people who had previously been fighting each other. Mm-hmm. Now, they have agreed on a strategic approach with what I would call 10 strategic areas. In these 10 strategic areas, people have different views. And definitely the essence of coming together is that we can dialogue, that we can have a thesis, an antithesis, and through the engagement, we can finally have a synthesis, which is the way we should move forward. That's what Hegel, the philosopher, encouraged people to do. And so in all this process, like in any process where people come together, we will always have hardliners on either side, and then we will have the moderates. Okay? The responsibility is upon the moderates to try and pull together as the moderates from both sides, and then try to influence the hardliners so that we could focus not on the minors, but on the majors, so that we achieve. And I'm happy when I listen to the principles. For instance, when I listen to the president speak in Migori, I think one of the worries that the ODM side had is that there is potential for competition for them in their backyard. But the president was quick to assure them that we are not out for a competition with you as our partners. We are going to have a framework that ensures cooperation. And then the following day, at the funeral of the former MP, Honorable Ngondowere, there were concerns that were raised by senior members of ODM and, cabinet secretaries who had previously been senior officials in ODM about the way the Secretary General prosecutes his cases against them specifically. And then the president, the former prime minister, who is the party leader, was then able to, one, recognize that Sifuna remains the spokesman of the party, but ask Sifuna openly in public amongst his colleagues that you have to temper down on the vitriol because we have a broad-based cooperation framework that we have agreed on 10 issues that must be implemented. Okay, so that can only be implemented through cooperation, through cross-fertilization.
Okay, let's talk about the 10 issues then. Did it require a coming together of the president and the former prime minister to address issues that are rather provided for in terms of their prescription by the Constitution?
Every time we have moved forward in this country is a moment when we have come together as a country. Okay? Look at the post-2007 events. It happened because we pulled apart. Okay? And out of that, we lost 1,300 Kenyans, 600,000 were displaced, and property worth billions of shillings was destroyed. This has been repeated every election cycle. Okay?
And who are the culprits here? I mean, let's decipher.
Yes.
There are three components to it. There is the donor of the power, who is the Kenyan people.
Yes.
To who all sovereign power belongs to.
Yeah.
There are those who govern over them, and after a period then seek to refresh that mandate. In the three instances of the Grand Coalition government, the handshake in 2018, and now under the broad-based arrangement, why the Kenyan taxpayer is not concerned about politicians coming together? But what does that say about the nature of how we administer ourselves on the part of the political elite?
Definitely the leadership, the political leadership, should take responsibility, first responsibility. They are the duty bearers, so that Kenyan taxpayers are right owners. But however, the problem in Kenya is a social problem. We behave like that, not only our political leaders, we behave like that in our cooperatives. We behave like that in our women groups. We behave like that in markets, in market committees. Okay? So we need as a country to dialogue to move the country to the next level. And every time we have been able to then bring change, we have brought, there are moments when we have come together. For instance, 2010 Constitution was only possible because we pulled together. Otherwise, if we kept fighting and accusing each other, we wouldn't be having a new constitution now. So we need to, thank the two leaders that they were willing to see the bigger picture and climb down from what I would consider their personal and ideological positions, and agree that even though we may disagree in certain areas, at least we have 10 issues that we agree in as a cooperation, and 10 things that Kenyans agree in. Let us work to resolve these things. You asked me whether it needed the coming together of the two leaders. It needed and it still needs the coming together of the entire country.
So then how do we govern ourselves? Is the political elite then sources for support from the public based on their interest and that? If you look at the 2018 handshake, what was achieved? Extrajudicial killings had increased under the Kenyatta-Raila handshake. And attempts to change the constitution were rather deflated by the courts, and the Court of Appeal in its ruling had determined that this was no ordinary amendment to the Constitution of Kenya, but a dismemberment of our Katiba. I mean,
I am a critic.
Doesn't that pose in itself challenge to our democracy?
I am a serious critic of the 2018 handshake, because it was not based on any framework.
And how is that then different from here? I mean, Joshua,
2010, allow me
in your earlier submission, I need to move to the Senator. In your earlier admission,
yes,
you pointed out that human rights are an issue to you. Then since the two gentlemen came together, 60 Kenyans were killed last year during the anti-finance bill demonstration.
That was before we
that was in the aftermath and before June 25th demonstrations.
Yes,
if this is a pertinent matter, why hasn't it been resolved
if you look at the NADCO report, one of the issues that is outlined is the human rights issues. And that is how we have a new Attorney General. That is how we have a PS in charge of justice and human rights. That is how we have an advisor to the President on human rights issues, a very respected advisor to the President, who had previously been a critic to the presidency. That is how we have she's my teacher, Dr. Baraza, as chairing a task force on femicide. That is how we have the Baby Pendo case that has been, stifled for many years, progressing in court.
Certainly it was a matter before a court of law.
But before a court of law, as lawyers, Sigay will tell you that we can decide as lawyers to delay a process in court.
Which is a problem also on your part, just like the political elite as lawyers. Yes, so let me come to the Senator. Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Ayub. You've headlined this discussion as the broad-based brawl. I want to dispel one thing that came from the statement of my colleague, Senator Onyonka here. The coming together of President William Ruto, this broad-based government led to a situation where opposition was muzzled out. And that is actually the beauty of the democracy that we are enjoying in Kenya. That is why when you say, a brawl is a noisy sort of, it's a confused, loud opposition of some sort.
It is on the part of the ODM party,
and it's across.
The extent to which the party leader says, cool down the vitriol.
Yes, it's across. And that's why I was saying it is the beauty of the democracy, because from within the ODM, the coming together of these two leaders did not mean that people are to be silenced. Those who have got independence of mind and divergent views on certain issues are not to speak. No, they are to speak because they are elected to represent people. And they don't represent only the people within their constituencies or their counties or their wards. These are leaders of the Republic of Kenya. I and Onyonka, when we sit in the Senate, are not necessarily speaking about Bomet and Kisii issues only. We speak about issues affecting the country called Kenya. And so it's all about the broad base. They came in together, and I'm happy that you asked the question as to why it was necessary for the 10-point MOU to be signed. And this is something that we have prosecuted on this platform sometimes back, and including even last week, I was here with the Secretary General of ODM, Senator Sifuna. And we went through the document because it's a public document that was signed by two principals in the public. Among the issues and among the reasons as to why that document was signed was to ensure that the goodwill that existed between these two parties is reduced into writing for ownership, not only by them as the leaders of their two respective groups, but as leaders representing a wider Kenya. And so, when you list aspects on, for example, the human rights issue, it is work in progress. It hasn't been concluded. You talk about the unity. One of the 10-point items was uniting the people of Kenya. That has been the message cutting across
but
in every speech that these two leaders
just hang on. What then happens to the constitutional commissions that are designed by Katiba to handle the 10 points agenda or any other problem that may arise?
That, by the way, is answered by my first statement. The coming together did not in any way, it did not diminish the independence of any other organ. And that is why we still have, for example, the judiciary doing its work independent of any other political interference. We have got other commissions doing their job. This is a political wing of the governance that has come together saying, look, this is where we have been. We voted on two different sides, or rather we were voted on two different sides. One from the government, one was in the opposition. We had an agenda. ODM had an agenda. This agenda was for the people of Kenya. If we come together, then we will be able to deal with the aspect on the youth, which is what is ongoing, marginalization, which is what for a very long time has been an issue, which this particular broad-based government is trying to address. And in most cases, just allow me to just conclude this.
Yes, please.
The aspect on this issue on regionalization of political interests and parties is what will ultimately be supported and be dealt with, hopefully, by this broad-based government.
And Senator, I'll come to you, Senator Onyango. One final question. Are you surprised when you look back 3 years when because you bill it as the antidote to our problems, the coming together of Raila Odinga and William Ruto.
Yes.
Are you surprised if you relive some 3 years back when your presidential candidate then in Chatham House in the UK said this is a scoundrel, and his first television interview after he assumed power in January 2023 attributed all the governance problems of the Kenyatta administration to what he termed as the handshake nonsense?
You know what, Ayub? Whoever does not change can never make a better leader. That is number one. Number two, the context of the handshake and the context of the broad-based government are completely different.
What's the difference?
The difference is this. In the 2018 handshake, it came in not as a product of the example we had in 2023, the Gen Zs, where they raised issues, the extent of attack in parliament, the finance bill, the situation of the country as it then and now, and more importantly, the leadership. President William Ruto is one of those leaders who accommodates criticism. That is why every day headline in the newspaper is a criticism against the government.
Okay. So, in the process, you're overlooking one fundamental thing, which is the common denominator aspect here. The handshake was resulted by the opposition boycotting the repeat poll on the 26th of October 2017. Thereafter, Raila Odinga swearing himself in as the people's president, mutating into the handshake. And then this is one that comes after the breach of parliament, because the National Assembly was dead against what the people were saying. So your party leader, in effect, was given political insurance by Raila Odinga.
Look at it this way. We had previously, after the 2022 election, the same issues that happened in 2017, 2018, right? Because we went to Supreme Court, a decision was made. It was not accepted by the opposition then. Remember, we used to have Tuesday and Thursday demos along the streets by the opposition, ultimately leading to now what happened on the 26th of June. What I'm trying to say is that the context of all this is something that when you place the 10-point agenda, when you place the decision by the President William Ruto to have the NADCO, which was non-partisan, it is bringing together everyone else on board to discuss issues which were reduced into writing and which speaks to the concerns that we are saying. We need to build Kenya as a one united country rather than mkulima, mfanyi biashara, Mount Kenya, Nyanza, you know.
Ayub, I would like to tell my two brothers here that one of the things I would recommend we do, why don't we have a constitutional amendment where we agree that in Kenya, anybody who becomes number one in an election and the one who's number two after the elections are over, they form a coalition. So that we don't waste this narrative of basically going around these things. The truth is, the reasons of all these handshakes are because of, they are actually a consequence of our failed state. This handshake thing has nothing to do with, oh, we want peace, or, you know, peace is going. No, it is the fact that we have refused to accept that we have different arms of government. We have the legislature, we have the judiciary, and we have the executive, which is the presidency. And we as leadership and people who are elected to do those jobs, we have refused to deal. The reason is we are too corrupt. All right, we have money peddled all over Parliament, National Assembly, Senate, everywhere. You have the judiciary where judges are receiving money to make rulings. Some of them don't even understand that we are affecting the very essence and nature of the state called Kenya. And then you have now an issue where the current administration has actually perfected the excellence of doing business around government and public engagements, whether it is SHA, whether it is SHIF, whether it is whatever you want to do. It is not that these things are not worthy. It is not that we are saying that these things have never meant anything. The truth is, look at what has happened every time there has been these handshakes. What has happened? Number one, and Ayub, I was one of the people during the time before President Ruto and Raila came in with this handshake thing. We were saying, we are not going for handshake, we want good governance. No. The truth and the reality is, after handshakes, corruption has never reduced. Most probably during Kibaki's time was when there was a little bit of tipping because we were all watching each other like dogs. The National Assembly, my colleagues who are now in this broad-based government are talking as if they are coming from some world where, according to them, it is their time to eat. My colleagues tell me that. They do not give a damn about good governance. Now they are actually in government, and we can go hang. And I've heard my brothers talk about Sifuna was spitting vitriol. Sifuna is not spitting any vitriol, my brother. Sifuna is telling you what you don't want to listen to. He's telling you that out here, the cost of living is high. Out here, corruption has gone beyond any limits. Look at the Kenya human rights record. Look at the way we've been behaving. Look at the way National Assembly MPs are behaving. I can tell you today, go to the National Assembly and see how many people are attending committee meetings and how many are attending the National Assembly. Everybody's traveled out of the country. Billions of shillings, people are just traveling. It's a fact.
And the offices are locked up.
It's a fact. We are not able to pay rent. We can't pay Kenya Power electricity. We have a regime. In fact, many of our embassies, I can tell you today, guys are writing information telling us, you know what, we don't know what to do. We are taking our kids to go and work in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. What is happening? If you see what we are receiving, these kids are going there, the agreements which are signed, there were no bilaterals, they are being put in the airplanes. When you get to those countries, what happens? The food they are eating is pathetic. The housing that they are getting. In other words, we are failing to understand that the purpose of any management of state resources is to make sure that we serve our public. And my argument is the broad-based government. Look at what is happening this morning. Nzoia Sugar has already been sold. The people of Bungoma, they are going crazy. Nobody, there was no public participation, there was no engagement from anybody. Deals are being done. Look at Mumias, look at Chemelil, look at Professor Nyong'o. What is he saying? What Orengo and Nyong'o are talking about is this: the bad behavior that we are supposed to protect Kenyans from a bad government and from our bad behavior of corruption and those deals. What has happened, Ayub? We are now actually camouflaging. We are the ones who are covering the nasty stuff that is taking place in government.
Dr. Martin Olo joins us, the Associate Dean at Daystar School of Law. Good morning, Dr.
Morning, Ayub, and my apologies.
Much appreciated. Understandable given the weather.
And I found these three gentlemen busy talking, and Mheshimiwa here talking. So I may need to be helped to come into context. Otherwise, I may go off a handle.
So let me finish.
Yes,
so what I'm saying is this: there is absolutely nothing wrong with having a national engagement as to whether we should govern ourselves in a certain way or not. There was nothing wrong in the issues which NADCO was raising or BBI. What we are saying today, what Kenya requires is not a coalition government or is not a broad-based government. What Kenya needs is a constituent assembly for leadership and all stakeholders in this republic, for the president to sit there and Raila and all these people who are looking for political office to sit and listen, so that Kenyans can tell them what is broken about our country. Because our country is broken.
I'll come to you, Senator. Dr. Martin, a synopsis of it is whether the broad-based arrangement as was bill is serving its purpose, given what we had in 2018 between Uhuru and Raila.
Definitely. What I may want to say, and thank you for having me, is that the discussions I'm hearing are good conversations around us. And sometimes we try to find solutions about Kenya, and some of what we think is our solutions don't appear to be solutions to others. When you look at broad government, which is a term that is not constitutional, it's not known anywhere, because what is broad government or broad-based? A government by its very nature should be broad inclusive. I mean, in other words, that if you win an election and you are the UDA, you should be inclusive. It's obvious, it's expected. You can reach out to rivals, you can ask them to join if you wish. When Obama took over, he invited Hillary, who was his rival, to come and join his government. It's possible that when you have a government, you look beyond yourself, you want to be inclusive, no problem. What are we dealing with? We are not dealing with a broad-based government. We are dealing with a personality-based government. So when you're bringing in Raila, you're bringing in the person of Raila, and you're bringing in the person of Ruto. Are they coming with their constituencies, yes or no? Because what is happening, you're hearing murmurs, you're hearing wrangles, and perhaps disaffection. So that is embedded. So when the Secretary General of ODM is saying we are not in government, then he is confirming that for sure this arrangement isn't a party-to-party arrangement, it's a personality-to-personality arrangement, and that's okay. Is it legal? It's not. Is it constitutional? It's not. So what we are looking at, these are political arrangements that if they work for you for the time being, so be it. Is the likes of Opio and I embodied there as ODM? Maybe not. They are there because they were invited and they saw the attraction and they went. I mean, why would you leave an elected seat to go and take an appointed seat which you can be fired any time, and yet the people will not fire you until you finish your term? So there are things that you look at and you ask, why are we even discussing this? It's essentially because we're discussing personalities. We're discussing Raila, we're discussing Ruto. You're discussing Raila at that time and you're discussing Uhuru at that time, because they are looking for ways of coexisting or the ways of just surviving, and talking to a brother, as they call themselves, becomes one of those things that you do to buy peace.
Yeah. Yes, and yes, Senator.
I wanted to...
before you go to Joshua, yes, proceed.
I wanted to do a rejoinder. It's hypocritical for my brother, Senator Onyonga, here to make very, disturbing descriptions of what goes on in Parliament and with parliamentarians. Equally, it's hard for him to describe the Kenya as a failed state. A description of a failed state is not Kenya. I mean, forget about the politics of whether you are in the broad-based government or not. Kenya is not a failed state. Kenya is a working nation that is, of course, with challenges just like any other. The description of a failed state is far from what Kenya is. And it's true that we choose to see what we want to see and hear what we want to hear, and of course, say what is most popular. The attacks on Parliament generally, I mean, for Senator Onyonka to say that all colleagues in Parliament, everybody is traveling, is untrue. One of the things that I would want to ask Senator Onyonka is, you know, me, I sit in the Speaker's panel. And every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I must be in the House because I am in the duty roles of that House. You are among the people who would really appear in the House. And you are now accusing the rest of the committee in Parliament that we are not
going to the territory I don't want to handle.
What I am saying...
I want to tell you, discuss
what
don't
I am
discuss
saying,
me. Because we sit in committee. If I don't come to your Nini, and anyway, you don't give me time to speak, allow me, please, to be the person who goes to my committees, then I come to the House. Stop disparaging my character here. Discuss the content of what I've raised.
Senator Onyonka,
and I've said, and by the way,
I kept quiet because it was
a failed state. People refuse to honor court orders. A failed state is when the Chief Justice and all the people are being kicked out of their office. A failed state is a state which has overborrowed. A failed state is a state which can't pay its debts. A failed state is a state which keeps militias in this country. What other characteristics of a failed state?
Senator Ayub, allow me now to speak. Listen, allow me, Ayub. No, Ayub. You know, this was my time. It's your time, yeah. It's my time, and I don't heckle.
Don't discuss me.
I do not interrupt. That is why I've opted to speak.
I'm never in Parliament.
Now, in this aspect, when you don't have a point, a valid one for that matter, you make noise, you heckle. I don't do that. Now, Parliament is not failed. The Kenya state is not a failed state. Parliamentarians don't travel every day. We have a session that goes on. We normally have a program that we do. It is a choice of an individual who wants to attend or not to attend Parliament. Serious parliamentarians attend Parliament. So you cannot blanketly say that we don't do anything or they don't give a damn. I chair a committee that do so much. We've sat in the NADCO report. We have issued a report. Kenya is not as corrupt as it's being described. The other day, the president rejected the conflict of interest bill with the memoranda that came to Parliament. We are prosecuting it tomorrow. It cannot be that a description that is given does not acknowledge even the basics of the things that we do. If it is about what is going on in this government, we have reduced the debt that we are talking about. We have overborrowed.
No, you borrowed more.
We have reduced the debt. We have stabilized the economy. We are talking about the CBC. Let us also, Ayub, let us allow some of the things that the government has done to be aired out. It is popular to say the easiest things which are negative, which it's about politics. Given we are in a political setup, but it is not sufficient to say that this political arrangement has done nothing for the people of Kenya. It is untrue. And therefore, we cannot generalize the failures and say it is a failure of entirety of everything else. It cannot be true that there is nothing good that this government of William Ruto has done. It cannot be true. It cannot be wrong that there are certain things that have been achieved out of the broad-based government. That should be the direction we go.
I get you.
Because if the colleagues who are now accusing the broad-based government to have done nothing, to have been a partnership of two individuals have done, isn't there anything good that has come? Of course, there is so much that has happened. And that should be the direction, that should be the context of the conversation that we're having if we want to be objective.
Briefly, I need to distribute the time because I need to accommodate more, Dr. Martin. Yes, Joshua.
Senator Onyonka is a friend of mine. I remember we campaigning in his constituency in 2007. And I understand where he's come from. But Senator Onyonka must remember that he's a duty bearer. he cannot come here and talk about what goes on in the Senate and Parliament as if he is an activist in the street. Some of the things that he's raising are things that we hope that he can raise in the floor of the House, and they can engage on, and then they can deal with those things for our benefit as Kenyans. I would want to ask Senator Nyonka not to come in the defense of my governor and the CIA governor, who, as people in that region, we have held to account by reminding them that they are no longer activists in the streets. They're duty bearers who should be responding to our problems. And you know, because of the broad-based government, we expect them to be working with the president to solve our issues, not making noise in the streets. I would want to ask Daktari that what we are evolving in this country is a very unique problem to respond to, you know, our historical problems, and to ensure inclusion, because we have had the legal system or the constitutional system that we have had over the years, but it has not responded to our problems. We still get into conflict, and the country has never been able to move forward. I would encourage him to you know, take this as a research area, have his students research about it, so that they inform the country moving forward on how to strengthen our governance systems and our governance frameworks, and ensure that certain lessons that we can pick from this are actually integrated into our governance frameworks.
Okay. Yes, list of members of the bicameral parliament, and they have started their own problem, is it, now lamenting that the country no longer functions. And do they understand that the momentum is slowly moving away from them, slipping away from them?
They may or may not understand, but I want to put this in a context. And I heard my brother Joshua saying that Governor Orengo and Governor Nyang
that must be the broad base.
They are being activists. I think that, and he says that they are making noise. I think that from a very human rights perspective, they have constitutional rights to express differing opinions. And when they do, if anything, when I look at James Orengo, I don't think he has ever changed. That's the Orengo we know. I look at Anyang, I don't think he has changed. That's Anyang we know. So let's give them the opportunity and the benefit of their constitutional right to express themselves and to disagree, even with the party leader. And I think that's important. Secondly, there is an issue that we need to introspect. And I think it's only fair that, especially for those of us who are close to government, to keep also listening in. And I want to give them examples. Trump arrived with tariffs, and he threw tariffs at China, and he threw several tariffs at, and China retaliated. Trump has gone to sit, and they now have, I don't think they have a deal, but they have gone back to
there was a nice
business. Yeah, so we see what Trump has made with, he's doing 30% on his people, and China is saying we'll do 10. So it's a lost game. But for leadership, it's time to also think. I mean, I know that I've lived in this country long enough to say that the problem we are suffering in this country is leaders don't want to listen and don't want to take a step back. If something's not working, call it what, say so. We found an education system that was working when Mwai Kibaki left. Yes. It is not working. Today, schools are a shell. You don't want to be a principal of a school. You can't pay your bills on time. You can't honor your commitments. That's a fact. Our health system isn't functioning. We know it. And so we can talk about SHA, we can talk about what was wrong with NHIF. By the way, there's no serious study that was ever done on NHIF as to give us what the next thing called SHA. There's no serious study that has been given to us that will make SHA more effective. In the meantime, our health services are deteriorating. Now you can justify it, but that's politics. So what I want us to argue is to say, look, things are not good. And if things are not good, they are also not good for those in government and those not in government. They are not good for Kenyans. That is a fact. When you look at the economy, when you look at indicators, when you look at businesses, when you look at people's spending power, it is not there. People are
pay slips.
Yeah. So people are suffering. So if we say that, then we say the business of government is to make life bearable to people. Now, if life is not bearable, We say it, but of course, some of my colleagues here are fairly privileged because they can raise their own salaries when they want. They can raise their own allowances when they want. They can go rogue when they want. Like they decide that CDF must fit in a constitution.
Whether we like it or not.
So you bring up a bill that is essentially unconstitutional.
Yes.
That defies the very tenets and the very architecture of the constitution. So when we are saying these things, we know that there are people who think that people are just making noise, but we also know that there are people who are actually in a bubble. They don't feel what's going out here because they can repair their lives. If they are not okay, they can add their allowances. If SRC says they can't do it, they can change it. So our members of parliament and our parliamentarians generally, both houses, are not in touch. Does that make the executive in touch? They are not in touch either. And what are Kenyans asking for? They want a government that works for them. That's all. If they want to go to school, to their children to go to school, let their children go to school. If they want to go for health treatment, let them find the medicine. So whether you are in government or you are in opposition, these things don't work for both unless you are capable of flying out the way some of our colleagues here can fly out. The medical schemes can be able to give them that advantage. But the majority of Kenyans can't get there. So what I would like to say is that we are slowly disengaging ourselves as leaders from Kenyans. So what we are now talking about is broad-based, and we can actually sit here, justify it for all we want. The truth of the matter is, how has a Kenyan's life improved as a result of this broad-based? And my submission is,